Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is the 6th of July, now it's 11:30, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be a little bit late in the afternoon on my Patreon page, in which I will share additional news that will be reported by Russian media. If you did see my second update yesterday on YouTube, then you have a good understanding what type of extra content or additional videos I do for Patreon, and that's been done on my part in attempt to generate additional interest among members of our community towards my Patreon, because Patreon is one of the major lifelines for this project, and I will be immensely grateful if you will consider to join my Patreon. You will see a link under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. That's been said, let's talk about news now. But first of all, let me say thank to all of you for your kind words in comment section under yesterday's second update. As I said many times before, our community is great. You are the best. You truly are the best. Very friendly, very kind. That's why I'm kind of proud that sometime when new members are joining our community, they are expressing their surprise when they see our comment section, because it's truly friendly and very kind atmosphere there. So thank you very much, and I did read as many comments as I could before I start preparing this update. And by the way, because of your interest and kind words, I have now more reason to create additional channel which will be not about news and political commentary, but about life in general in Russia, just everyday life. It will be kind of vlog, and when we will go back to Moscow region, I will definitely create this additional channel, and I will have a channel Levan Gudadze Opinion, this one for news and political commentary, and the other channel on the working name of Informal Talks from Russia. That's working name. Maybe I will come up with some better name for the channel, or maybe you will recommend some name. And well, that second channel will be kind of vlog about everyday life in Russian Federation. So hopefully it will be interesting. That's been said, let's talk about news now, and of course I will start with the Ukrainian special military operation. During the previous night, Russian side conducted missile and drone strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of Zelensky's regime, and I did share this morning information about it on my Telegram page. And according to latest news that we are receiving, Russian side did strike logistical and military infrastructure of Zelensky's regime in regions of Cherkasy, Lvov, Ternopil, Zhytomyr and Khmelnytsky, probably some other areas also, because Zaporozhye region and Kherson region, Russian side constantly trying to strike a concentration of manpower and ammunition depots or warehouses where military equipment is hid in these two regions. Also in Dnipropetrovsk region in the direction of Kryvyi Rog. So I believe geography of yesterday's night strikes are much wider than it was reported initially. And of course, during the day, Russian Defense Ministry will probably share additional information with the public about yesterday's strikes, and I will share this information with you on my Telegram and in second update. That's been said, let me give you a quick summary of the situation on the front lines. So Kherson region, it's it's quiet now in comparison to previous week when Zelensky's regime was trying to establish a bridgehead on the left bank of this river. It's artillery duels now, mainly between the sides. Same goes for Zaporozhye sector of the front and South Donetsk sector of the front. Russian Telegram channels and other sources are reporting about constant redeployment of additional forces by Zelensky's regime in these sectors of the front in attempt to prepare a second wave of counteroffensive. But for now mainly it's operational pause that holding in this area, even though almost on all directions there are some local skirmishes between the sides, and Russian and Ukrainian units are trying constantly to improve their positions. When it comes to Donetsk direction, it's usual stuff. Marinka and Avdiivka are hot points, but mainly it's artillery duels right now between the sides mainly. Yesterday probably you did notice that during the, and I did spoke about it in second update, that during the day, especially in the first half of the day, the rumors were circulating on internet, including in Russian segment of internet, that Zelensky's regime did manage to establish control over the Klishchevka, this settlement here on the southern flank of Bakhmut. And by the way, this pro-Ukrainian map is mistaken, because according to this map, Klishchevka is under control of Ukrainian forces, but this is not true. And yesterday afternoon and this morning we did had statements from Russian side that Klishchevka is under full Russian control. And even though Zelensky's regime, Ukrainian forces that are still loyal to Zelensky are conducting wave after wave offensives in direction of Klishchevka, and they did manage to achieve some local scale success. They even managed to establish control over the one of the heights in this area, but settlement itself is under full Russian control. That's information that we are getting for this moment. And of course Kurdyumovka, also on southern flank of Donetsk, is also a hot point. Ukrainian forces constantly are trying to achieve some success in direction of these two settlements, Kurdyumovka and Klishchevka, but they are pretty much unsuccessful for this moment. When it comes to Bakhmut itself, city is under full Russian control, even though in previous days there were some reports that some units of Ukrainian forces did manage to establish control over the, or at least enter south eastern part of Bakhmut or Artyomovsk, but this information was never confirmed by Russian side, and city itself is in under full Russian control. When it comes to northern flank of Artyomovsk, it's Russian side that are trying to improve their positions, because in previous days Ukrainian forces were quite active in this direction, and it seems like they did run out of steam, and they had catastrophic failure basically in direction of Verkhovka. When they tried to enter this settlement, entire units of Ukrainian armed forces were destroyed. And I guess for day or two, Ukrainian forces will be quite in this direction. They will try to reinforce if Zelensky's regime has any more reserves in this area, and then we may see activization of Ukrainian side again. But because yesterday and day before Russian forces were conducting some local scale offensives on the northern part of on northern flank of Bakhmut, it's quite possible that not Ukrainian but Russian forces will conduct offensive operations, significant scale offensive operations in this area, and maybe even get closer to Chisov Yar. When it comes to Solidar direction, it's kind of operational pause, even though there are some local scale skirmishes between the sides, but nothing in the large in the large scale, at least for now. Seversk direction, it's Belogorovka that is very active, and there was some report that Russian forces were conducting offensive operations, local scale, yet again, offensive operations in direction of Yampol and Liman in this sector of the front, Yampol, Liman, Zarechная, but yet again, we are talking about local scale and nothing. And when it's local scale operations, of course, they cannot influence overall situation on the sector, on the scale of sectors of the front. And Kupiansk direction, it's mainly operational pause, but there are some reports that Russian side fairly soon, in very short amount of time, may conduct large-scale offensive operations in direction of Kupiansk and in direction of Kharkov region. There are some indicators that this will happen fairly soon, but yet again, at least for now, it's operational pause. And mainly sides are trying to destroy each other's positions with artillery, with missiles and the drones. That's when it comes to quick summary of the situation on the front line. Let me share with you some other news now. And RIA Novosti is reporting that Denis Pushilin, head of DPR, this morning denied once again informations that were circulating in internet that Klishchevka is under Ukrainian control. As I just said a few minutes ago, this settlement is under Russian control, even though some big channels yesterday, some big Russian channels even were mistaken at the beginning, and they did report that Russian forces withdraw from Klishchevka. But later on, we had many statements from officials and from some other sources that Klishchevka is under full control of Russian armed forces. And the TASS news agency is also reporting about situation on Donetsk front line, and Pushilin was asked about slow pace of offensives or successes in Donetsk direction, and basically Pushilin did said that Kiev regime was reinforcing Donetsk direction, defense lines in Donetsk direction since 2014, and they are well enough dig in, and that's why it's not easy to establish control over the entire Donetsk region, entire DPR territory in short amount of time, and that's why fighting is taking so long, for example, for Marinka or Avdiivka or any other settlement, really. And it's true, isn't it? I mean, Pushilin is saying true, because since 2014, Zelensky's regime, not Zelensky's regime, but Kiev regime, it was a Poroshenko, before Zelensky, then Zelensky, and they were using all this time to create well-prepared defense lines in Donetsk direction, and that's why Russian forces find it difficult to break through those defense lines. But yet again, little by little, but Russian forces are managing to achieve some success, and I believe once issue of Ukrainian counteroffensive will be resolved, I believe Russian side will become much more active, not just in Donetsk direction, but all along the front line. Let me continue now. And TASS news agency is reporting based on statements of Vladimir Rogov, head of NGO We Are With Russia, which is based in Zaporozhye region. And by the way, I believe Vladimir Rogov himself is somewhat involved in Zaporozhye administration. I was always thinking that he's official in that region, but he is positioning himself as a leader of this NGO, and that's what I will use. So Vladimir Rogov did said that NATO summit, after NATO summit, it's highly likely that after NATO summit in Vilnius, it will take place on 11th, 12th of July. It's highly likely that some NATO member states will send their forces in western Ukraine. And he did mention Poland, he did mention Baltic states. And by the way, I believe this is first time, if I'm not mistaken, that major Russian media outlets are acknowledging or devoting time to such a topic as a possibility that Western Ukraine will become under control of some NATO member states. You know my take on this situation. I was talking about this topic and such a possibility for many months now, and it's no surprises for us, for our community, if such developments will take place. But fact itself that Russian media, mainstream media now talking about this possibility is interesting on its own. And well, I don't know when it will happen. After NATO summit in Vilnius, or straight away, or in months or 2 months time, I believe it will take at least a couple of months before Poland and some other NATO member states will try to establish control over the western parts of Ukraine, this area, including Lvov, of course. But anything is possible, and we may see this type of development to take place in very rapid pace right after Vilnius summit. And maybe Rogov is right, maybe he has some inside information, who knows. But me personally, I was always quite sure that Poland and some other NATO member states will try to establish control over at least over the western regions of Ukraine, one way or another, and they will probably try to enforce no-fly zone over the same area. And that's when we will see, in my reading of big picture, Western-made fighter jets being introduced to this battlefield. And the only question remains for me that is that will NATO member states stay on the western Ukraine only, or will they try to establish control over all central parts of Ukraine, let's say, including Kiev, or maybe even entire territory of Ukraine that are under control of Zelensky's regime right now? Because it does make huge difference, because if NATO member states will stay in the western regions, that's one scenario, and in that case it will be probably possible to avoid direct large-scale, at least, confrontation between Russian forces and forces of NATO member states. But if Poland and allies of Warsaw will try to establish control over the central parts of Ukraine, or let's say over the Odessa region or Kharkov region, then world are in deep trouble, because I don't think Russia will take this kind of development lightly, and risk of direct clashes between Russian and NATO forces will increase dramatically. So let's see how it will goes, really. But at least our community is well informed, I believe, and well, I don't think any type of development will surprise us. Let's continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report, according to which yes, this is about Klishchevka. Also, yesterday, during the attempts of Zelensky's regime to enter Klishchevka, Russian side did use Frontline aviation, and Russian helicopter gunships did take care of many Ukrainian units and their armored personnel carriers. And as I understand, Mi-35 helicopter gunships were especially active in this area. And yet again, Klishchevka is under full Russian control. That's the situation for this moment when I'm recording this video. If any changes during the day, of course, I will report about it on my Telegram page and in second update for Patreon. Let's continue, and this is RT's report about statements that Dmitry Medvedev did made, former president of Russian Federation and current deputy chairman of the Security Council. And well, according to Medvedev, hostilities between Moscow and Kiev would end swiftly if US and its allies stop sending arms to Kiev, which is also complete true. I mean, you can't argue with that, isn't it? Without support of Western elites, including with weapons and money, Zelensky's regime will be forced to sign peace agreement or start peace negotiations like in weeks' time, maybe even in days' time. So I said quite a few times before that it will take just basically one call from Washington to Kiev, and this conflict will end. But unfortunately, for now, Washington and London are not yet ready to talk about peace. And as long as that's the case, unfortunately, there will be no peace in Ukraine. That's a sad reality, unfortunately. And by the way, Dmitry Medvedev some time ago also did spoke about possibility that Ukraine will be divided. If you remember, I did report about it, and he did said that between two worst scenarios, in which one scenario is when entire Ukraine is joining NATO, and in second scenario, excuse me, in second scenario, only western parts of Ukraine will join NATO. Of course, if choice is between these two bad and worse scenarios, Russia will prefer second one, when only western regions will join NATO. I guess becoming part of some NATO member states that are bordering Ukraine. And well, today, as I just reported a few minutes ago, Vladimir Rogov spoke about possibility that Poland and some other NATO member states will try to establish control over the western regions of Ukraine. And well, we are definitely moving towards that direction, I guess. And we do have more and more indicators that eventually, when this conflict will end, West will control western regions of Ukraine, and the rest of the Ukraine, or at least entire southern and eastern parts of Ukraine, from Kharkiv to Odessa region, will be controlled by Russian Federation. And yet again, for now, still not enough information, not enough indicators to say which side will control Kiev and surrounding regions, or central regions of Ukraine. Probably it will be Russia, probably, but yet again, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell right now, because Western elites may try to establish control over the direct control, including with military force, over the Kiev and central parts of Ukraine also. But anyway, in coming, if not weeks, in coming months, we will definitely see how will situation develop. This is, by the way, also RT's report about IAEA's official statement about results of probe into Kiev's claim, Zelensky's regime's claim about mines in Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And by the way, in second update yesterday, I did spoke about statements that was made by head of IAEA, Rafael Grossi. He denied Zelensky's claim. He said that IAEA don't have information that ZNPP was mined, and later on IAEA itself come up with the official conclusion. And as of now, at least IAEA experts are free enough to say true, and they are confirming Russian position that there is no mines on IAEA. Zelensky's regime, Zelensky himself were lying, basically. We all knew it, but it's always good when you have a third party that confirms information that you have. Let me continue now, and oh, that's interesting. US did blame Russian pilots in unsafe conduct in Syria, over the Syria, when Russian fighter jet, I believe Su-35, did come closer to a US drone. You can see this video. You can see this video on my Telegram page, and well, I believe Pentagon should be thankful that Russian fighter jet did not shut down US drone, because Russia have been invited in Syria officially by Syrian government. When US is occupier in Syria, US has nothing to do in Syria, and the presence of US military is illegal, absolutely illegal. And very same administration of US will, does talk about Russia's activity, and which is laughable, isn't it? I don't think current administration of US, as long as the states are acting extremely aggressive all around the world, has any moral rights to say anything whatsoever to anybody, including Russia. But by the way, if you are interested in this video, you can see it in on my Telegram page. And I believe US administration should be truly thankful to Russia, because for Moscow it's just one call, I believe, and US bases in Syria will become US bases in Syria will be erased. Basically, it's only one call from Moscow, and we should all understand this, and US bases in Syria will be erased, and Pentagon and Washington very well knows this. So despite this extremely aggressive behavior of current administration of US, we can clearly see that Russia is restraining itself, and don't want to further escalate already bad enough relationships with US or with EU member states or NATO member states. Is it true, isn't it? After all, there are so many, fighters in Syria, so many groups that will be happy to have a permission to just erase US bases there. But it's Moscow that not allowing this to happen. It's simple true. Because Moscow don't want further escalation, because it's no good for nobody really. But Western elites, do they care about further escalation or about peace in this world? Of course they don't. And that's why they are the side that constantly escalates. By the way, this is Lenteros report, which is quite interesting. According to this little article, Saudi Arabia did make the decision or basically denied information that Riyadh is planning to start trading oil in Chinese yuans. As you know, Saudi Arabia traditionally sells its oil in US dollars, and not just Saudi Arabia, many other Gulf states, almost all the Gulf states, doing the same. And that's why I guess US dollar has that name of petrodollar. But lately there were some rumors circulating in internet, and even some big names in media, did spoke about possibility that Riyadh will change its policies and will start to trade in yuans. And well, even if Saudi Arabia will try to will sell its oil in yuans, exchange rate will be based on US dollar. So US dollar will don't go away from oil market anytime soon. And which is good, by the way. I said quite a few times before that once BRICS will come up with its own currency, which will be second or one of the main reserve currencies in this world, US dollar will lose its dominant position, but I don't think it's in anybody's interests to see US dollar becoming irrelevant, absolutely irrelevant, and plummeted into plummeted into deflation, not deflation, but yes, that's deflation, isn't it? When currency is losing its strength in extreme terms, whatever that term is. I believe it will be good for world if we have a US dollar as a reserve currency, one of the reserve currencies. BRICS currency, if it will be made, if it will be created as a reserve currency in this world. Chinese yuan, also, why not? Euro, why not? And this way, no one country will have a dominant position in world markets, and no one country can use its currency as a weapon like US does right now with dollar. So that's why I think it will be good if major countries in this world will balance the dollarization process to make sure that dollar will not collapse entirely, because that will be devastating not just for US economy but for entire world, especially because of influence of US economy, how important US economy is for the world. Let me continue. This is quite interesting information. As you know, during the previous days, some escalation is happening between Georgia and Ukraine because of Zelensky's regime, basically, and they did demanded a Georgian ambassador to be recalled from Ukraine, and we have information here that Georgian ambassador will flee Ukraine, will leave Ukraine today. Yet again, Zelensky's regime demonstrates how out of touch with reality they are in Kiev, because Georgia and Ukraine had great relationships for forever, and the current regime is just just like that, easily destroying these relationships. Well, I did see some reports from in Georgian media outlets, and Georgian officials did say that they will remain friendly attitude towards Ukraine, but very same time they are acknowledging that current regime in Ukraine are acting extremely hawkishly and inadequately, basically, which is completely true. Let me continue now. And Kommersant is reporting newspaper that, well, that's interesting. Meta did create kind of alternative for Twitter, and it will be called Threads. I'm not gonna download this app. It's available now to download. I have Twitter account, but I used it so rarely that I don't even remember password on Twitter, and I will definitely won't download these Threads. But I guess it's good when some competition is happening on the market, good for consumers. So yes, let's see what this new app from Meta will provide for internet community. I guess it's a significant development in IT world. Let me continue, and by the way, this is gonna be last topic for today's update. Russian ruble is continuing to plummet, and the latest news is that today exchange rate between ruble and the dollar did reach 93 ruble for $1, and euro was trading for 102 rubles. Well, quite lately we do see quite significant drop in strength of Russian ruble, and the head of Russian Central Bank, Nabiullina, today did comment on the current situation, and she said that weakening of the ruble is due to some foreign trade dynamics, whatever that means, and she also did said that current development does create some additional inflationary risks, which is obvious, and this situation will probably have a influence in decision-making process when it comes to percentage rates of central bank. Let me I do forget terminologies, specific financial terminology that they use. So, whatever. You know what I mean when these central banks are rising or decreasing this percentage point on which they are issuing money for banks. I just forgot terminology. It's that specific terminology. I'm not expert in finances, but well, I guess that percentage point will be risen in foreseeable future to somehow slow down this process of weakening of the ruble. But yet again, weak ruble is good for big Russian companies that are oriented for export. Weak ruble is good for federal budget, I guess, because they having more rubles when they exchange foreign currencies. But weak ruble is bad for us, for ordinary customers, because it does create additional inflationary risks. And just yesterday we had reports that Mishustin, Prime Minister of Russia, did made an optimistic statement that inflation in Russia in annual terms will be about 5%. And I did say yesterday that it seems to me extremely optimistic forecast, 5% inflation. But well, let's see. I guess the ruble will continue to plummet. Before end of this year we will probably see exchange rate like 100 ruble for $1, maybe even more. So I guess inflation will be much higher than 5%, no matter what kind of measures central bank will take. But as long as we will not end up in hyperinflation when prices are skyrocketing, probably we can deal with that. As long as it's not hyperinflation, we can live with it, because after all we do understand that Russia is under immense pressure from the Western elites, and we don't really have a choice. We have to withstand this pressure, all of us in Russia. That's how it is. So how did I forget that terminology, man? when okay, whatever. This is it for now. So this is not last news. Ruble is continuing to become weaker, which is not really good for us because of inflation. But yet again, it is what it is. I hope you will find this update interesting. Sorry that I get lost towards the end of this video. I was trying to remember that specific terminology that central banks are using due to that percentage point. But anyway, so I hope you will find overall this update interesting, and if so, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Twitter, Facebook, Telegram, or this new platform that was created by Meta, which owns Facebook also, by the way. And yes, if you think this channel is interesting, has some potential, and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. I wish you a great day and take care. See you soon.